Stand at the gates on Lakeshore Drive and you see something that shouldn't exist. A Cotswold village. Stone walls softened by ivy. Slate roofs aging like memory. Gardens that roll toward Lake St. Clair as if England relocated to Michigan. Beautiful. Impossibly so. But this house was never just a beautiful villa. How did one man build a fairy tale on the shore of an industrial empire while his father's factories remade the world? What did it cost to create paradise when everyone around you was building the future in steel and smoke? Who paid for the dream? With money, with labor, with their lives? And when the dreamer died at 49, could the dream survive without him? This is Gawkler Point, the Edsel and Eleanor Ford house, a mansion built by the only son of Henry Ford, a man who lived in the shadow of the most famous industrialist in America, who died before he could escape that shadow, and whose widow ensured that what he built would outlast them all. What does it cost to build permanence when you're born into impermanence? More than money. It costs vision, sacrifice, and the willingness to let beauty serve something larger than yourself. If you enjoy deep investigations into Gilded Age architecture and the families who built it, please like, subscribe. Your support makes these detailed documentary investigations possible. May 1926. The North Shore of Lake St. Clair. Stand here and the water stretches east toward the horizon, gray-blue and endless. To the west, the factories of Detroit pump smoke into a spring sky. This is the border between two Americas. One America makes things. The other America buys what's been made. The land is called Gawkler Point. Before that it was nothing. Marshland, mosquitoes, French ribbon farms carved so narrow that 300 feet of shoreline had to stretch back half a mile just to feed a family. The soil remembered floods. The trees bent toward the prevailing wind. Edsel Bryant Ford stands at the water's edge. He is 32 years old, president of Ford Motor Company since he was 25, the only child of Henry and Clara Ford, heir to one of the largest manufacturing empires on the planet, and trapped. His father built the Model T and changed the world. 15 million sold. Every small town in America reshaped by the automobile. Henry Ford is a titan, a genius, and a tyrant who will not let his son escape his orbit. But Edsel is not his father. He loves art. He collects paintings by Cézanne, by Rivera. He funds the Detroit Institute of Arts. He designs cars, but his designs are rejected. He proposes modernization, but his father overrules him. He is president in name. In practice, he is a prince waiting for a throne that will never be his while his father lives. So Edsel does what men of his generation do when the world will not bend to them. He builds a world that will. He has purchased 125 acres on this shore. He has hired the finest architect in Detroit, Albert Kahn, who designed the Ford factories, who knows how to build monuments that last. He has commissioned the most visionary landscape designer in America, Jens Jensen, who sees meadows where others see lawns, who plants native hawthorn and dogwood where others would install formal European gardens. And he has brought his wife, Eleanor Clay Ford. Eleanor is 29. Born into Detroit's merchant aristocracy, her uncle is J.L. Hudson, owner of the city's premier department store. She grew up surrounded by art and philanthropy. She taught at settlement schools before she married. She believes in beauty, yes, but she believes beauty must serve. They stand together at the water. Behind them, construction begins. Edsel Bryant Ford was born November 6, 1893 in Detroit. The same year his father made his first gasoline engine. Think about that. A boy born the same year the automobile was born in his father's workshop. By the time Edsel was 3, Henry Ford had built his first car, the quadricycle, assembled in a shed behind the family's modest house. By the time Edsel was 12, he was driving. By the time he was 20, his father was the most important non-political person in the United States. The Ford Motor Company, founded in 1903, built more than half the cars sold in America by 1913. Henry Ford was contemplating the assembly line, the $5 day, industrial immortality, and Edsel grew up inside that machine. He learned the business from the bottom up. He worked at the Paquette plant office. He stood alongside engineers developing the Model T. In 1915, he became company secretary. In 1916, he married Eleanor Lothian Clay at her uncle's mansion on Boston Boulevard, a wedding that united automotive royalty with merchant aristocracy. And in 1919, Henry Ford retired. Edsel became president of Ford Motor Company at 25. Except Henry never truly retired. Here's what happened. Edsel wanted to modernize. He wanted to replace the Model T with something more stylish, more refined. His father said no. The Model T was perfect. The Model T was eternal. Change was betrayal. For years, Edsel pushed. For years, Henry refused. Market share dwindled. General Motors gained ground. Chevrolet offered color, style, comfort. The Model T, available in any color you want as long as it's black, began to look like a relic. Only when sales collapsed did Henry relent. The Model A launched in 1927, Edsel's vision, Edsel's design, featuring hydraulic brakes and modern styling. It sold 4 million units in 4 years. A triumph. But the victory was bittersweet. Edsel had won a battle. He had not won the war. His father still controlled the company, still humiliated him in public, still supported unsavory characters within Ford who undermined Edsel's authority. James Couzens, the man who had helped organize Ford Motor Company in 1903 and then left after a falling out with Henry, once told the elder Ford, "I don't envy you for anything except for your son." Edsel was brilliant, even-tempered, a gentleman, a designer with genuine talent, and utterly unable to escape his father's shadow. So he built elsewhere. In 1922, Edsel convinced his father to purchase the bankrupt Lincoln Motor Company. Edsel ran it. He exhibited his design talent. The racing Greyhound hood ornament for the Lincoln Continental, the sleek lines that made Lincoln synonymous with elegance. He founded the Mercury division in 1938 to compete in the mid-price market. He became a major art benefactor. He commissioned Diego Rivera to paint the Detroit industry murals at the Detroit Institute of Arts. Murals that celebrated the very factories his father built, but through an artist's eye. He collected African art before it was fashionable. He funded Admiral Richard Byrd's polar explorations. And in 1926, he began building Gawkler Point. Not a summer retreat, a permanent home. A place where he and Eleanor would raise their 4 children. Henry II, born 1917. Benson, born 1919. Josephine, born 1923. William, born 1925. A place where beauty and family mattered more than production quotas and assembly lines. A place that was his. Ground breaks in July 1926. The site is Gawkler Point, where the Milk River flows into Lake St. Clair. 125 acres, 3,100 feet of lake frontage. The land is flat, marshy in places, but with good bones. Trees already mature, views unobstructed. Albert Kahn is the architect. Born in Germany in 1869, Kahn came to Detroit as a child. By 1926, he is the architect of Detroit, designer of nearly 900 buildings in the city. He built the Highland Park Ford plant in 1909, where the assembly line was born. He built the Ford River Rouge complex in 1917, the largest manufacturing cluster of plants in the United States, eventually employing 120,000 workers. Kahn revolutionized industrial architecture. He pioneered reinforced concrete, non-intrusive steel structures, natural ventilation, glass building skins. His factories were cathedrals of production, but Kahn also designed mansions. He understood that the men who built empires wanted beauty at home, even if they built efficiency at work. Edsel and Eleanor traveled to England with Kahn in 1926. They toured the Cotswolds, the rural region in Gloucestershire where medieval villages cluster along hillsides. where stone cottages age into the landscape, where ivy softens walls and slate roofs decrease in size as they rise toward peaks. They asked Kahn to design a house that felt like those villages, not one cottage, many cottages, assembled into a whole. The house should look as if it had been built over centuries, as if each generation had added a wing, a courtyard, a garden room. Kahn understood. He designed 60 rooms wrapped in sandstone, a slate roof with graduated shingles. Ivy trained to grow across the exterior from the beginning, as if the house had stood for generations. Moss encouraged to take root. The house would be 20,000 square feet, not as large as the Gilded Age palaces going up in Newport or Long Island, not Biltmore's 175,000 square feet, not Rosecliffe's 40,000, but substantial. A manor, not a cottage. Construction begins. The exterior takes 1 year. 1 year to build 20,000 square feet using methods that honor tradition. Stone is cut and laid by hand. English craftsmen are brought in to ensure the roof is authentic, each slate piece sized and placed according to Cotswold techniques. The roof shingles decrease as they ascend, just as they would in Gloucestershire. Records do not specify the exact size of the construction crew, but projects of this scale and speed typically employ between 50 and 100 workers at peak. Masons, carpenters, ironworkers, glaziers, laborers who mix mortar, haul stone, dig foundations. Their names are lost. No payroll ledgers survive in public archives for this private project, but they were there. Men who likely lived in Detroit's immigrant neighborhoods, Irish, Italian, Polish, German. Men who built the dream homes of the wealthy while living in bungalows and flats themselves. 1 year for the shell, then 2 more years for the interior. This is where the house becomes extraordinary. Edsel and Eleanor made multiple trips across the Atlantic. They purchased antique wood paneling from English manor houses, 16th, 17th, 18th century panels, carefully removed, crated, shipped across the ocean, and installed in Detroit. A staircase from Lyveden Manor in Northamptonshire, dating to 1600, becomes the main staircase. Charles Robertson, an expert in adapting old European elements to American interiors, oversees the work. Fireplaces are sourced from English estates. Kitchen counters are made of sterling silver, not because silver is practical, but because it is beautiful, and Edsel believes in beauty. A secret photographic darkroom is built behind a panel in Edsel's office. He is an amateur photographer, and he wants a space where he can develop his work unseen. Art Deco rooms are added in the 1930s, designed by Walter Dorwin Teague, a leading industrial designer. The modern room on the first floor features indirect lighting, revolutionary in the 1930s, taupe leather wall panels, and 18 vertical mirrored sections in a curved niche. Teague designs bedrooms for the 3 sons, Henry II, Benson, and William. Henry II's bathroom features gray glass walls made of structural glass, the same material as the shower stall. Wrought iron doors by Samuel Yellen, the Philadelphia metalsmith, open from the main hall to the loggia, framing views of Lake St. Clair. Yellen is known for creating ironwork for some of the most important buildings in America: the Federal Reserve Bank in New York, the doors of the National Cathedral in Washington. The house is filled with art. Paintings by Cézanne hang in the drawing room. A Diego Rivera painting in the modern room, Vincent van Gogh, Edgar Degas, Pierre-Auguste Renoir. Eleanor and Edsel are serious collectors, guided by William R. Valentiner, the first director of the Detroit Institute of Arts, who travels with them through Europe to view masterpieces. The house is a museum, but it is also a home. In September 1928, the Fords move in. While Kahn builds the house, Jens Jensen builds the world around it. Jens Jensen was born in Denmark in 1860. He grew up on his family's farm, cultivating a love for the natural world, the change of seasons, the Danish landscape's stark beauty. He studied at agricultural and horticultural colleges in Copenhagen, Berlin, and Hanover before immigrating to the United States in 1884 with his wife. By the 1920s, Jensen is the most important landscape architect in the Midwest. He worked his way through Chicago's park system, from laborer to foreman to superintendent of Humboldt Park by 1895, then general superintendent of the entire West Park system by 1905. He resigned in 1920 to start his own private practice, focusing on estates for the wealthiest families in America. Jensen's philosophy is radical for its time. He rejects European formalism, the geometric parterres, the sculpted hedges, the marble statues. He believes in native plants. He believes landscapes should feel as if they have always been there, as if nature designed them, not man. He calls his approach the prairie style. Edsel and Eleanor Ford hired Jensen in 1922 for their first Michigan residence. Over the next 13 years, Jensen designs 4 estates for the Ford family, 3 in Michigan, 1 in Maine. The Edsel and Eleanor Ford house at Gockler Point is his masterpiece. Jensen arrives in Grosse Pointe in 1926. He walks the land, 125 acres. Some trees already mature. Views toward the lake unobstructed. The land is flat, typical of the region, but Jensen sees possibilities. He proposes the long view. Instead of revealing the house immediately, Jensen designs the entrance to create anticipation. Visitors pass through gates on Lakeshore Drive. For a moment, through the trees, they glimpse the residence down a long meadow. Then, the view disappears. The drive curves. Trees close in. Brief partial views appear. A section of roof, a stone wall, ivy. The house teases. It hides. Only at the end of the drive does the house reveal itself fully, framed by the meadow, the lake beyond. This is psychological design. Jensen understands that anticipation enhances experience. The journey matters as much as the destination. The meadow becomes the centerpiece. Jensen plants native grasses, wildflowers, hawthorn, crabapple, redbud, dogwood, trees with dominant horizontal branches that echo the flat prairie landscape. Large elms frame the house and create sight lines down the meadow. Dogwood, plum, sumac, lilac encircle the residence. Jensen works closely with Kahn to ensure harmony between architecture and landscape. The buildings should appear to grow from the land, not dominate it. Eleanor wants a rose garden. Jensen resists. He had previously quit working for Henry and Clara Ford when Clara insisted on placing a rose garden in the center of the backyard meadow at Fairlane, the elder Ford's estate in Dearborn. Jensen believed formal rose gardens violated the natural aesthetic. But Eleanor negotiates. The rose garden is placed behind native bushes, out of sight of the main meadow. A compromise. Jensen creates a lagoon fed by a man-made water system, a swimming pool nestled into the landscape, paths that wind rather than march, sun openings and shaded groves, council rings, circular stone benches for gathering around fires, for storytelling, for contemplation. Jensen loves council rings. He believes they connect people to ancient rhythms, to community, to the land. He plants 3,100 feet of lakefront. Benches are placed strategically, not in rows, but where views open, where light falls at certain hours. The landscape work takes years. Plantings evolve. Trees mature. By the 1930s, the estate looks as if it has stood for generations. This is Jensen's gift, the ability to create instant age. The house and grounds feel timeless, as if they have always been part of Michigan's shore. Step past the showpiece rooms, walk behind the ivy-covered walls, descend into the basement, and the other face appears. The Edsel and Eleanor Ford house is not just a residence, it is a machine, a complex system designed to sustain a family of 6 in comfort while appearing effortlessly elegant. 60 rooms, 30,000 square feet, 87 acres of grounds, 3,100 feet of lakefront. gardens that require constant care, interiors that demand maintenance, art that needs climate control. None of this runs itself. Deep in the basement, infrastructure hums. A powerhouse generates electricity for the estate, its own grid, independent of the city. This is before rural electrification is widespread, before power grids are reliable. Wealthy estates like Gockler Point cannot depend on municipal utilities, so they build their own. The powerhouse is a separate building near the gatehouse. Inside, generators throb. Coal fires heat water, creates steam, drives turbines. Electrical wiring snakes through the walls of the main residence, hidden behind plaster and paneling. Switches in every room. Lights that glow at the touch of a button. Still a luxury in 1928, still a marker of modernity. Boiler rooms the size of small factories burn coal to heat 60 rooms through Michigan winters. Lake St. Clair freezes. Winds howl across the flat landscape. Temperatures drop below zero. Without heat, the house would be uninhabitable from November through March, so the boilers run. Coal arrives by the ton, delivered by truck, dumped into bins. Workers, men whose job is just coal, shovel fuel into furnaces. The heat rises through pipes, radiates through cast iron radiators in every room. The house stays warm. The family never shivers. But think about the volume. How much coal does it take to heat 30,000 square feet for 6 months? Hundreds of tons. Maybe thousands, depending on the severity of the winter. Each ton must be purchased, delivered, unloaded, stored, shoveled, burned. And the ash, the residue of combustion, must be removed, disposed of, hauled away. This is industrial-scale domestic engineering. Industrial-scale refrigeration keeps food fresh in the kitchen. Walk-in cooling rooms, ice boxes large enough to store sides of beef, crates of vegetables, wheels of cheese. The kitchen is not a home kitchen. It is a restaurant kitchen scaled for a family that entertains constantly. Cooks prepare meals 3 times daily. Breakfast for 6, lunch for 6, dinner for 6, often more when guests arrive, plus afternoon tea, plus midnight snacks, plus special events, dinner parties for 20, garden parties for 50, fundraisers for 100. The kitchen staff is not small. A head cook, sous chefs, pastry chefs, scullery maids to wash dishes, servers to carry food from kitchen to dining room via service stairs and hallways hidden from view. Water is supplied by a man-made reservoir on the property. Gockler Point cannot rely on city water pressure. The estate is too large, the demand too great. So a reservoir is built, fed by wells or Lake St. Clair, filtered, stored, pumped through the house. Bathrooms require water. Kitchens require water. Laundry rooms require water. The lagoon, the swimming pool, the gardens all require water. Thousands of gallons daily. And then there is wastewater, sewage systems, septic tanks or connections to municipal lines, drainage for the pool, the lagoon, the rain runoff from 87 acres. Every system requires maintenance. Pumps fail, pipes freeze, filters clog, and when they do, workers must fix them immediately, because a house like Gockler Point cannot afford downtime. The family expects perfection. Service staircases wind through the house, narrow, unadorned, hidden from guests. These are the arteries of the invisible city. Staff move along these pathways unseen, so fires are lit before dawn, so breakfast appears without effort, so the house glows by lamplight before anyone asks for it. Imagine the choreography. Maids rise at 5 in the morning. They descend to the basement, climb the service stairs, enter bedrooms while the family still sleeps. They light fires in the fireplaces, draw back curtains, lay out clothing. Then they vanish before the family wakes. Footmen polish silver, dust furniture, sweep floors. Laundresses wash linens, sheets, towels, tablecloths, napkins, staff uniforms. The laundry room is industrial. washing machines powered by the estate's electrical grid, mangles to press sheets, drying racks, ironing stations. All of this happens out of sight. The gatehouse along Lakeshore Drive includes apartments for staff. An 8-car garage features a turntable so cars can rotate without backing out. A luxury, yes, but also practical engineering. The garage houses Edsel's collection of vehicles, Ford cars, of course, but also luxury imports, an MG, the first brought to the United States, a custom aluminum speedster with a V8 engine, designed by E.T. Gregory, Ford's first designer. Chauffeurs maintain the cars. They wash them, service them, drive them. Edsel drives himself often. He loves cars, loves speed. But when Eleanor needs transport, a chauffeur is ready. Gardeners work year-round. In spring, they plant annuals, prune shrubs, repair winter damage. In summer, they mow 87 acres of lawns, weed flower beds, maintain the lagoon and pool. In fall, they rake leaves, mulch gardens, prepare plants for winter. In winter, they clear snow, protect delicate plantings, plan for spring. The head gardener oversees a team. Records do not specify exact numbers, but estates of this size typically employ 10 to 20 gardeners. Each has a specialty. One knows roses. Another knows native plants. Another maintains the lagoon's water quality. Another operates the mowing equipment. Jens Jensen's landscape requires expertise. Native plantings must be managed carefully. Too much intervention destroys the naturalistic effect. Too little allows invasive species to take over. The meadow must be mowed at specific times to maintain its prairie character. The trees must be pruned to preserve sight lines Jensen designed. This is not casual yard work. This is professional horticulture. The recreation house beyond the lagoon contains changing rooms and a squash court with a spectator's gallery. The playhouse built for daughter Josephine in 1930 by her grandmother Clara features working electricity and plumbing, an exterior decorated with characters from nursery rhymes. It is a house within an estate, a child-sized mansion that would be the envy of any adult. Someone must maintain these buildings too. Someone must ensure the plumbing works, the electricity functions, the paint does not peel. How many people does it take to run Gockler Point? Records suggest well over 100 staff at peak. Maids, footmen, cooks, laundresses, stable hands, gardeners, chauffeurs, groundskeepers. Some live on the property in the staff apartments. Others commute daily from Detroit's working-class neighborhoods, Hamtramck, Highland Park, the East Side. Their names are largely lost. No comprehensive staff records survive in public archives. Payroll ledgers, if they existed, were private documents, discarded when no longer needed. Employment records were not public. The servants who made Gockler Point function remain anonymous. But consider the mathematics. 60 rooms require constant cleaning. Even rooms not used daily accumulate dust. Furniture must be polished. Rugs must be vacuumed. Windows must be washed. And there are many windows, large windows, leaded glass, windows that require careful handling. Fireplaces need fires laid daily in winter. 20 rooms with fireplaces means 20 fires every morning from November through March. Each fireplace must be cleaned of ash, kindling laid, wood stacked, fire lit, maintained through the day. Then the ash must be removed, the grate cleaned, the hearth swept. That is one person's full-time job. Maybe 2 people. Laundry for a family of 6, plus linens for guest rooms, plus staff uniforms. Consider the volume. Sheets changed weekly, towels changed daily, tablecloths changed after every meal, napkins by the dozen, servants' uniforms, maids' dresses, footmen's livery, washed constantly. Industrial washing machines help. But someone must sort the laundry, load the machines, add soap, transfer wet items to dryers or drying racks, iron everything that needs ironing, fold, store, distribute back to rooms. That is another full-time job. Probably 3 or 4 people. Meals prepared 3 times daily, plus entertaining. Breakfast at 8, lunch at noon, dinner at 7, tea at 4. The kitchen never stops. And when the Fords entertain, which they do often, the kitchen scales up. Dinners for 20, garden parties for 50, fundraisers where 100 guests expect canapes, champagne, a full buffet, head cook, sous chefs, pastry chefs, scullery staff. 6 to 10 people in the kitchen at any given time. Gardens spanning 87 acres need mowing, weeding, planting, pruning. The lagoon requires pH balancing, algae control, filtration. The pool requires chlorination, cleaning, winterization. Trees need inspecting for disease. Dutch elm disease will eventually kill the original elms Jensen planted, requiring replacement. Shrubs need shaping. Flower beds need constant attention. 10 to 20 gardeners working full-time April through October. Fewer in winter, but still present. Cars need washing, servicing, 1 to 2 chauffeurs. Maintenance workers for plumbing, electrical, carpentry, masonry. When something breaks, and something always breaks in a house this size, it must be fixed immediately. 2 to 4 full-time maintenance workers, household management, a head housekeeper who oversees maids, a head butler who oversees footmen, a head cook who oversees kitchen staff, a head gardener who oversees grounds crew, estate managers who handle budgets, staffing, supplies. Add it all together. 100 staff is not an exaggeration. It might be an underestimate. 100 people working so that 6 can live in comfort. What does this cost? Construction costs are not publicly documented, but estates of similar scale and quality in the 1920s typically ranged from $1 million to $3 million, equivalent to roughly $30 million to $90 million today. The Edsel and Eleanor Ford house, with its imported antiques, custom stonework, Jensen's landscape design, and Kahn's architectural fees, likely cost toward the higher end. $2 million perhaps. $60 million in today's terms. Operating costs? This is where the real expense accumulates. Staff wages, 100 people. Even at modest wages, maids earning perhaps $30 monthly in the 1920s, skilled workers like head cooks earning $100 monthly, the payroll is staggering. Say the average is $50 monthly. That is $5,000 monthly in wages, $60,000 annually, equivalent to roughly $1.8 million today. But wages are only part of the cost. Coal tonnage, food supplies for the kitchen, laundry soap, cleaning supplies, garden supplies, seeds, fertilizer, mulch, tools, maintenance materials, paint, lumber, nails, replacement parts for plumbing and electrical systems, gasoline for the cars, insurance on the property, the buildings, the art collection, property taxes on 125 acres of prime lakefront land in Grosse Pointe. Tens of thousands of dollars monthly in operating costs when the average American worker earned less than $500 yearly. The disparity is stark. A single month's operating cost for Gawker Point exceeds what most Americans earned in 2 years. The math is staggering. But Edsel can afford it. As president of Ford Motor Company, even in name, he draws a substantial salary, likely 6 figures annually in 1920s dollars. And he inherits wealth, his father's empire, though Henry controls it tightly. Edsel is a millionaire many times over. But here is the paradox. Edsel is one of the wealthiest men in America. His family's company is one of the largest manufacturing enterprises on the planet. But his wealth is tied to a company he does not fully control. He is rich, but not free. At Ford Motor Company, his father overrules him. Harry Bennett undermines him. Board members ignore him. He proposes innovations and is rejected. He suggests modernizations and is rebuffed. He is president in title, but Henry is still the power. So Edsel cannot control the factories. but he can control Gawkler Point. This becomes his kingdom, the one place where his decisions matter absolutely, where beauty is the priority, not efficiency, where his vision is realized, not compromised, where his family thrives away from the factories, away from the politics, away from his father's shadow. Gawkler Point is freedom, expensive freedom. Freedom purchased with wealth, yes, but also with labor. The labor of 100 invisible workers who make the dream real. But every hour of that beauty requires invisible hands. Every perfect dinner requires cooks, sweating in industrial kitchens. Every pristine garden requires workers on their knees in soil. Every warm room requires men shoveling coal into furnaces. Every glowing lamp requires a generator burning fuel in the powerhouse. The beauty is real. The cost is real. This parallel world was designed to remain out of sight, and it did. Guests at Gawkler Point saw only elegance. They saw ivy-covered walls, manicured lawns, perfect meals, appearing as if by magic. They did not see the basement. They did not see the service stairs. They did not see the kitchen at midnight, the laundry room at dawn, the gardeners working before the family rose. The machinery of beauty was hidden by design, because to see it would shatter the illusion. And the illusion that grace and comfort arise naturally, effortlessly, was part of what Edsel was buying. Not just a house, an alternate reality, a world where everything worked, where nothing broke, where beauty sustained itself. September 1928. The Fords move in. Edsel is 34. Eleanor is 32. Their children are 11, 9, 5, and 3. The house is ready. The gardens are maturing. The staff is in place. The systems hum. For the first time, Edsel has a home that reflects his vision entirely. And it is more than a home. It is a sanctuary. Life at Gawkler Point centers on family. The children grow up surrounded by art and nature. Henry II and Benson, only 2 years apart, explore the grounds together, racing along the paths Jensen designed, climbing trees, building forts in the woods at the edge of the property. They swim in the lagoon in summer. They ice skate on it in winter when it freezes solid. Josephine, nicknamed Dodie, is the only girl. In 1930, when she is 7, her grandmother Clara gives her an extraordinary gift, a child-sized playhouse. Not a toy, a real house, scaled down. 2 stories, working electricity, running water, a kitchen with miniature appliances, a bedroom with a bed, an exterior decorated with painted characters from nursery rhymes, Mother Goose, Humpty Dumpty, Little Bo Peep. The playhouse is a miniature Cotswold cottage matching the main residence. It stands near the gatehouse, visible from Lakeshore Drive. Visitors sometimes mistake it for a guest cottage until they realize its scale. Josephine plays there for years. She hosts tea parties. She invites friends. She decorates it herself, choosing furniture, arranging dolls. It is her kingdom within her father's kingdom. William, the youngest, born in 1925, will eventually receive an even more spectacular gift. On his 21st birthday in 1946, 3 years after his father's death, the family commissions a full-sized replica pirate ship for the lagoon, a party showpiece. The ship floats on the water, complete with masts, sails, rigging. Live entertainment performs. Frank Sinatra sings. The party is held on the Apple patio, overlooking the lagoon. 100 guests, music, dancing, champagne. A celebration of youth, of wealth, of the world the Fords inhabit. But that is later. In the 1930s, life is quieter. Edsel is a devoted father. Despite the pressures of Ford Motor Company, despite his father's constant interference, despite Harry Bennett's machinations, despite the ulcer that begins gnawing at his stomach, he makes time for his children. Weekends at Gawkler Point are sacred. He does not bring work home. He does not take calls from the factory on Saturdays. Sundays are for family. Breakfast together in the breakfast room, overlooking the gardens. Walks through Jensen's meadows. Picnics by the lake. Sailing on Lake St. Clair. The Fords keep a boat at the Grosse Pointe Yacht Club nearby. Edsel teaches his sons about cars, about design, about the family business. Henry II, the eldest, is groomed to succeed. He attends the Hotchkiss School in Connecticut, where his father went, then Yale. He learns the business from the ground up, just as Edsel did, working summers at Ford plants, observing, absorbing. Benson is quieter, more introspective. He loves the estate, loves nature. He will eventually struggle with the weight of expectations, with the pressure of being a Ford. William, the youngest, is charming, athletic. He will become the longest-lived of the four, dying in 2014 at age 88, long after his siblings are gone. Josephine, the only daughter, is doted on. Edsel is especially close to her. He photographs her constantly. His secret dark room behind the office panel is where he develops portraits of his children. She grows up understanding art, beauty, privilege. She will marry Walter Boole Ford too, no relation, and carry the family name forward. Eleanor manages the estate with quiet authority. She oversees the staff. She ensures the house runs smoothly. She plans the entertaining. Dinners for Detroit's elite, garden parties, fundraisers for the causes she supports. She is not a socialite. She is a philanthropist. Eleanor serves on the board of the Detroit Institute of Arts. She and Edsel provide significant funding. From 1924 to 1945, they donate generously to make the DIA an internationally recognized museum. When Diego Rivera proposes the Detroit industry murals in the early 1930s, Edsel champions the project despite controversy. Rivera is a communist. His politics offend Detroit's conservative elite. But Edsel believes in art over politics. He commissions the murals, funds them, defends them. Rivera becomes a friend. He visits Gockler Point. He paints a portrait of Edsel. The two men talk about art, about industry, about the intersection between creation and production. Rivera sees beauty in Ford's factories, the machinery, the workers, the choreography of assembly lines. Edsel sees beauty in Rivera's vision, the ability to transform labor into art. Eleanor also supports the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, Detroit Artists Market, Henry Ford Hospital, where Edsel serves on the board. She focuses especially on organizations that serve women and children, schools, settlement houses, immigrant aid agencies. She remembers her own work before marriage, teaching at the Franklin Settlement, helping immigrants navigate a new country. She donates anonymously often. She does not seek recognition. She gives because she believes wealth carries responsibility. The Fords entertain constantly. Dinners in the formal dining room, where Edsel's sterling silver kitchen counters gleam and Cézanne paintings hang on the walls. Eleanor sits at one end of the long table, Edsel at the other. Guests fill the space between automotive executives, artists, politicians, philanthropists. The conversations range across topics, business, yes, but also art, music, politics, ideas. Edsel is curious. He reads widely. He asks questions. He is not a man who pontificates. He is a man who listens. Garden parties in summer, tables set up on the lawns overlooking the lake, white linens, crystal, flowers from the gardens. The band plays. Guests wander the grounds. Admiring Jensen's landscapes, children run through the meadows. Sailboats pass on Lake St. Clair, their sails bright against blue water. Fundraisers for the DIA, for the symphony, for hospitals. Eleanor opens Gockler Point for charity events. The house becomes a gathering place for Detroit's cultural elite, not just the wealthy, but the artists, the musicians, the writers, people who create, not just consume. This is the life Edsel wanted. Not factories, not boardrooms, but beauty, family, culture. A life where design matters, where art is valued, where conversation transcends profit margins. But outside Gawker Point, the world darkens. October 1929. The stock market crashes. The Great Depression begins. Ford Motor Company survives. Cars are essential. And Ford's assembly line efficiency keeps production costs low. But sales decline sharply. Workers are laid off by the thousands. Unemployment soars. Bread lines form in Detroit. Edsel feels the weight of it. He walks through Ford plants and sees men desperate for work. He knows that decisions made in boardrooms, his father's decisions, Bennett's decisions, affect families, lives, futures. He and Eleanor respond. They open a soup kitchen in Detroit during the Depression's darkest years. They donate anonymously to families who lose homes, who cannot afford food, who face eviction. They increase their giving even as the economy contracts. But the Depression strains Edsel personally. Pressure at Ford Motor Company intensifies. His father, now in his 70s, becomes more erratic, more stubborn, more resistant to change. General Motors gains market share. Chrysler innovates. Ford stagnates. Edsel pushes for modernization. He advocates for new models, better designs, improved worker conditions. He is overruled repeatedly. Henry supports Harry Bennett, who runs Ford's security department like a private army. Bennett is a former boxer, a brawler, a man who intimidates through force. He has Henry's ear, and he uses that access to undermine Edsel at every turn. Board meetings become battlegrounds. Edsel proposes, Bennett opposes. Henry sides with Bennett. Edsel's authority erodes, and his health begins to fail. In the early 1940s, Edsel develops an ulcer, stomach pains, constant discomfort. He eats sparingly. He loses weight. Doctors prescribe rest, but rest is impossible. The company is struggling. The United States enters World War II in December 1941. Ford converts to war production, tanks, bombers, engines. Edsel oversees much of the conversion. He works 70, 80-hour weeks. The ulcer worsens. Eleanor watches her husband deteriorate. She urges him to step back, to delegate, to prioritize his health. But Edsel cannot. He feels responsible. The company is his inheritance, his burden. If he does not hold it together, who will? His father's mind is slipping. Bennett is dangerous. The board is fractured. So Edsel continues. He works through pain. He attends meetings. He makes decisions. And the ulcer deepens. By 1942, he is visibly unwell, gaunt, pale, moving slowly. Colleagues notice. Friends worry. Doctors warn him. But Edsel persists. At Gawker Point, there is still peace, still beauty. He walks the grounds when he can. He photographs the gardens. He sits by the lake, watching the water, listening to the wind in Jensen's trees. He plays with his grandchildren. Henry II and Benson are married by now, starting families. The house is full. 3 generations under one roof, or visiting often. Edsel and Eleanor, their children, their children's children. The continuity of family, the promise of legacy. But Edsel knows something his family does not yet fully grasp. He is dying. The ulcer is not healing. The pain is not subsiding. And in early 1943, doctors discover cancer, stomach cancer, metastatic. It has spread beyond the stomach, into lymph nodes, into organs. Surgery is attempted. The surgeons open him, assess the damage, close him back up. There's nothing they can do. The cancer is everywhere. Edsel returns to Gawker Point to die. May 26, 1943, Edsel Bryant Ford dies at Gawker Point. He is 49 years old. The official cause is stomach cancer, metastatic and inoperable. Surgery was attempted. The cancer had spread too far. He also suffered from undulant fever, a bacterial infection likely contracted from unpasteurized milk. But those are the medical facts. The deeper truth is more complicated. Edsel had been ill for years. The ulcer, the stress, the constant battles with his father, the humiliation of being president in title but powerless in practice, the knowledge that Harry Bennett, a man Edsel despised, had more influence over Ford Motor Company than the president did. Eleanor believed her father-in-law killed her husband, not with his hands, but with his refusal to step aside, his refusal to trust his son, his refusal to let Edsel truly lead. And she was not alone in that belief. Many within Ford Motor Company thought the same. James Couzens, who had left Ford decades earlier, had once envied Henry for his son. Now Couzens' envy seemed tragically misplaced. When Edsel died, Henry Ford was 79. His mind was slipping. He reassumed the presidency of Ford Motor Company, a move that alarmed everyone. The company was in shambles. Henry's outdated methods, his resistance to change, his reliance on Bennett had brought Ford to the brink of collapse. Eleanor acted. She was now the largest shareholder in Ford Motor Company, and she used that power. She insisted that her son, Henry Ford II, then serving in the Navy, be discharged to take over the company. She threatened to sell her shares if Henry refused to step aside. In September 1945, Henry Ford resigned. Henry Ford II became president at 28, the same age his father had been when he became president. Henry II saved the company. He ousted Bennett. He hired professional managers. He modernized production. He turned Ford around. But that was later. In May 1943, at Gockler Point, there was only grief. Edsel was buried at Woodlawn Cemetery in Detroit. His will donated all his non-voting stock to the Ford Foundation, which he and his father had founded in 1936. Eleanor remained at Gockler Point. She lived there for 33 more years. Eleanor Clay Ford was 64 when World War II ended. Her husband had been dead for 2 years. Her son, Henry II, was running Ford Motor Company. Her other children were grown, Benson and William working at Ford, Josephine raising her family, and Eleanor was alone in a house built for 6. She could have left, sold the estate, moved somewhere smaller, somewhere without memories in every room. Gockler Point required constant upkeep, staff, maintenance, taxes, operating costs that would drain even a Ford fortune if sustained indefinitely. But Eleanor stayed. She understood something essential. The house was not just a building. It was a legacy. It was what Edsel had built when he could not build what he wanted within his father's company. It was the one place where he had been entirely free to create, and Eleanor was determined to preserve it. She continued living at Gockler Point, but she adapted. Some staff were let go as the children moved out. Rooms were closed off. The estate no longer operated at full capacity, but Eleanor maintained the core, the main residence, the gardens, the art collection. She increased her philanthropy. After Edsel's death, she gave more generously, more publicly. She supported the Detroit Institute of Arts, funding acquisitions and programs. She donated to schools, hospitals, social services. She focused on organizations that served women and children, echoing her work from before she married when she taught at settlement schools. In 1946, she sold 43 acres of the estate to the city of Grosse Pointe Woods to build a municipal park. The estate shrank from 125 acres to 87, but the sale ensured that some of the land would remain open, accessible to the public. Eleanor also began planning for the future. In 1976, Eleanor Clay Ford died. She was 80 years old. Her will contained a provision that would change everything. She left the estate, the house, the remaining 87 acres, the art collection, the furnishings in trust. Her wish was explicit. The property should be used for the benefit of the public. She also left $15 million in an endowment to maintain the estate. By 2007, that endowment had grown to $98 million through careful management and investment. The Edsel and Eleanor Ford House opened to the public for tours. It was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1979. In 2016, it was designated a National Historic Landmark, one of only 5 Albert Kahn buildings to receive that honor, alongside the Fisher Building, the Ford River Rouge Complex, the General Motors Building, and the Highland Park Ford plant. Eleanor's final act of generosity ensured that Gockler Point would survive, not as a private enclave for the wealthy, but as a museum, a garden, a place where anyone could experience the beauty Edsel and Eleanor had created. Walk through the gates today, and you enter a different world. The house still stands, ivy-covered and timeless. 60 rooms filled with original furnishings, art, antiques. The staircase from Liveden Manor still rises from the main hall. The wrought iron doors by Samuel Yellen still frame views of Lake St. Clair. The Art Deco rooms still glow with indirect lighting. The gardens still roll toward the lake, just as Jens Jensen designed them. The long meadow, the native plantings, the hawthorn and dogwood and crabapple, the lagoon, the pool, the council rings, the playhouse where Josephine played, the gatehouse, the powerhouse, the recreation house, and 87 acres of grounds where anyone can walk. The Edsel and Eleanor Ford House is not a static museum. It is a living institution. Tours run year-round. Thousands of visitors annually. Families, students, historians, architects, garden enthusiasts. Docents lead groups through the main residence, explaining the architecture, the art, the family story. Specialized tours explore the nooks and crannies, the service areas, the offices, the infrastructure usually hidden from view. The estate hosts events, outdoor concerts on the shore of Lake St. Clair in summer, a home for the holidays lighted walk in December, a children's Halloween event called Little Goblins, lectures, classes, workshops on art, design, history, landscape architecture. In 2020, a new 40,000 square foot visitor center opened. It houses a restaurant, the Continental, a museum store, exhibition spaces, event venues, and educational program rooms. The visitor center is modern, but designed to complement the historic estate, not compete with it. The estate's staff work to maintain historical accuracy. Restoration projects are ongoing. When the sandstone pillars on the lakefront patio began to crack, the foundation contracted a firm from the same region in England where the original stone was quarried. When the roof needed replacement, 5 professional masons from England were brought in to ensure authenticity. The goal is not preservation for its own sake. It is preservation in service of education, of public access, of ensuring that the beauty Edsel and Eleanor created continues to inspire. But sustaining a national historic landmark is expensive. The estate relies on multiple revenue streams: admission fees, event bookings, the restaurant, the museum store, donations from Friends of Ford House, a membership program that provides funding and ensures community support, and the endowment Eleanor left, now valued at nearly $100 million, generates income to cover operating costs, maintenance, restoration, and programming. Even so, the math is delicate. Running 87 acres, maintaining a 20,000 square foot historic house, preserving gardens, managing staff, it all costs millions annually. The endowment helps, but the estate must also justify its existence to the public, must prove that it serves more than just nostalgia. And it does. The Edsel and Eleanor Ford House educates. It teaches about architecture, about landscape design, about the intersections of art and industry. It tells the story of a family, complex, flawed, human, who lived at the center of the American automotive revolution. It preserves Jens Jensen's landscape philosophy, Albert Kahn's architectural genius, and the vision of 2 people who believed beauty mattered. It also tells a story about labor, about the workers who built the house, who maintained the grounds, who sustained the dream. Their names are mostly lost, but their work remains visible in every stone laid, every garden planted, every meal served. The house survived because Eleanor understood that great things must learn to serve. A private mansion, no matter how beautiful, cannot last forever on private wealth alone. But a public trust, a place that serves education, culture, community, can endure. Here is the remarkable thing. The Edsel and Eleanor Ford house should not exist. Look at what happened to other estates of the same era. Rose Terrace, built by Anna Dodge in 1934 at a cost of $4 million, demolished in 1976. Harbor Hill, built by Clarence Mackay on Long Island, demolished in the 1940s. Countless Gilded Age mansions razed, subdivided, converted beyond recognition. The pattern is clear. When the wealth that sustains a grand estate evaporates through death, through market crashes, through changing fortunes, the estate collapses. Maintenance costs spiral. Taxes become unbearable. No single family can afford to keep a palace running, and no institution wants the burden. So the mansions fall, but Gawkler Point did not fall. Why? First, Eleanor's vision. She understood that the house could not survive as a private residence indefinitely. Even the Ford fortune could not sustain it forever without purpose. So she gave it purpose. She made it a public trust, a museum, an educational institution. She provided an endowment to fund it, and she did this before her death, ensuring the transition would be smooth. Second, timing. Eleanor died in 1976. The historic preservation movement was gaining momentum. The National Register of Historic Places had been established in 1966. Americans were beginning to recognize that losing their architectural heritage was a cultural tragedy. The idea of saving important buildings, not just as private homes, but as museums, was taking hold. If Eleanor had died in 1946, immediately after World War II, the house might have been sold, subdivided, lost. In 1976, there was infrastructure to receive it. There were laws to protect it. There was public will to preserve it. Third, intrinsic value. The house is genuinely important. An Albert Kahn masterpiece. A Jens Jensen landscape. Original art and furnishings. A time capsule of 1920s, 1940s upper-class American life, but with depth. The story of Edsel Ford, his struggle with his father, his contributions to automotive design, his philanthropy. The house is not just beautiful. It is historically significant. That significance justified the expense of preservation. Fourth, location. Grosse Pointe is wealthy. The surrounding community values history, architecture, culture. The estate benefits from proximity to Detroit, a major city with museums, universities, cultural institutions. It is accessible. People visit. If the estate had been in a remote location, attracting visitors would be harder. Revenue would be lower. Sustainability more difficult. Fifth, adaptation. The estate did not try to remain frozen in 1928, it adapted. The visitor center, built in 2020, is modern. The restaurant serves contemporary needs. Events and programming evolve. The estate balances preservation with relevance. This is the key. Museums that refuse to change become mausoleums. Museums that serve living communities survive. Contrast this with estates that failed. Rose Terrace, for example. When Anna Dodge died in 1970, the house was auctioned. Christie's sold the contents. The music room went to the Detroit Institute of Arts. But the house itself, 42,000 square feet, 75 rooms, was too expensive to maintain. No buyer wanted it. So it was demolished in 1976, the same year Eleanor Ford died. The difference? Anna Dodge did not plan for public use. She did not endow the estate. She did not build institutional support. Eleanor did. So who actually paid for Gawkler Point? Edsel, with his salary and inheritance, but also workers, men whose names are lost, who laid stone and cut wood and planted gardens, men who earned wages but not wealth, who built beauty for others to inhabit. Eleanor, with her vision and stewardship, but also donors today. Friends of Ford House, visitors who pay admission, people who book events. They sustain what Eleanor started. The public through tax exemptions. The estate is a 501c3 nonprofit. It does not pay property taxes on 87 acres of prime lakefront land. That exemption costs the local government revenue. In exchange, the estate serves the public, a trade-off. And Edsel himself, in a different sense, he paid with his life, the stress of building this house while fighting his father's company, the ulcer, the cancer, the death at 49. Would he have lived longer if he had not carried so much? We cannot know. But Eleanor believed the burden killed him. This is the equation of beauty. Nothing beautiful exists without cost. The question is, who bears it? And whether the cost is just. At Gockler Point, the cost was borne by many. By wealth, yes, Edsel and Eleanor could afford it, but also by labor, by sacrifice, by vision. And today the cost is borne by those who choose to sustain it. Visitors, donors, staff, the state of Michigan, which provides grants, the National Park Service, which designates and supports national historic landmarks. The beauty persists because people choose to let it persist. Stand at the gates now, in 2025, and think about what you see. A house 97 years old, still standing, still beautiful, still serving. This is not normal. Most houses built in 1928 are gone, or changed beyond recognition. Most estates from the 1920s were demolished, subdivided, repurposed. Most dreams of permanence lasted a single generation. But Gockler Point endures. Why? Because it learned to serve. Edsel built the house for his family. That was a private dream, beautiful but limited. When Eleanor transformed it into a public trust, she gave the house a second life. It no longer existed to serve one family. It existed to serve everyone, to educate, to inspire, to preserve a piece of American history. This is the lesson. Permanence requires purpose beyond the self. A mansion built for luxury alone cannot last. The money runs out, the heirs scatter, the costs overwhelm. But a mansion that serves as a museum, as a cultural center, as an educational institution, can endure. There is a second lesson. Beauty must be accessible to justify its cost. If Gockler Point had remained private, closed to the public, it would have been indefensible. Why should one family occupy 87 acres of lakefront, a 20,000 square foot house, staff, gardens, when that land could house hundreds? The answer? They should not. And Eleanor knew it. By opening the estate, by making it a public good, Eleanor justified its preservation. Now the house serves tens of thousands annually. It educates. It inspires. It demonstrates what American design could be at its best. Kahn's architecture, Jensen's landscapes, the integration of art and nature and domesticity. The cost of preservation is high, but the benefit is real. There is a third lesson. Legacy is a choice. Edsel could have been forgotten. The son who failed to escape his father's shadow. The president who could not truly lead. The man who died too young, too stressed, too trapped. But Eleanor ensured he would be remembered differently. She preserved his house. She donated his art. She told his story. And now Edsel Ford is known, not as a footnote to his father, but as a designer, a philanthropist, a man of vision who built something beautiful in an industrial age. Eleanor gave Edsel the legacy he could not claim in life. And she gave herself a legacy too. The woman who saved the house. The woman who transformed a private dream into a public treasure. There is a fourth lesson. Adaptation is survival. The house today is not what it was in 1928. Rooms are closed. Staff is smaller. Events and tours did not exist in Edsel's time. The visitor center is new. The restaurant is new. The programming is new. The estate adapted. And because it adapted, it survives. Museums that refuse to change die. They become irrelevant, burdensome, expensive curiosities. Museums that evolve, that meet contemporary needs while preserving historic integrity, thrive. Finally, there is a lesson about the cost of beauty. Beauty is never free. It requires resources, labor, maintenance, vision. The question is whether the cost is worth it. At Gawker Point, the answer is yes, but only because the beauty serves, only because it is accessible, only because it educates. If you visit the Edsel and Eleanor Ford House today, you are part of this equation. Your admission fee sustains the estate. Your presence justifies its preservation. You are not a passive observer. You are a participant in keeping beauty alive. This is what Gawker Point teaches, that beauty can endure if it serves something larger than itself. That permanence requires sacrifice and vision and adaptation. That legacy is built not in isolation, but in relationship between past and present, between private and public, between wealth and work. Edsel Ford built a house to escape his father's shadow. He succeeded, but the house endures not because it was an escape, but because it became a gift. Eleanor Ford gave the house to the world, and the world, in return, keeps it alive. The gates still stand on Lakeshore Drive. The ivy still covers the stone walls. The slate roof still graduates toward the peak. The meadow still rolls toward Lake St. Clair, just as Jens Jensen imagined it. Inside, the house glows. Fireplaces, art, antiques, light filtering through leaded glass. Outside, the gardens bloom. Dogwood, hawthorn, crabapple, native grasses swaying in the wind. And visitors walk the grounds, learning the story of a man who built a dream, a woman who preserved it, and a house that learned to serve. This is Gawker Point, the Edsel and Eleanor Ford House, a mansion that refused to die, because it found a purpose beyond beauty, because it chose to give, not just to take, because Eleanor understood what Edsel perhaps could not, that great things last only when they serve something greater than themselves. How much does a dream cost? More than money. It costs vision, sacrifice, adaptation, and the humility to let beauty live by learning to serve.